Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Carson City. Today we're inside the state capitol, joined by Paul Anderson. He's the minority leader of the Nevada State Assembly. And it's undeniable, sir, that the governor, the Republicans, the Democrats have been focusing on K-12 like a laser beam over the last few years.
Absolutely.
And that laser beam is as sharp as ever in 2017, despite some political changes in power. Talk to us about, well, go back to 2015. Passed some increase in taxes, money went to K-12. How has that gone?
Well, we've got some recent reports back that we're seeing some substantial movement on academic achievement. Our students are doing better. They're moving in the right direction. Still have a long way to go, but we set a solid foundation in 2015 to make sure that the money went into the right categories. And with that came some accountability back as well.
And when you look at what the governor has said in terms of the upcoming budget, he is very committed to continuing to fund K-12 at an increased level. Seems to be pleasing to both Dems and Reaps in the legislature. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think as you look at the way we funded education last session, in the 2015 session, we put money into what's called categorical funding.
Right.
And with that, we added some accountability measures, which meant that not only were we giving money into key areas that we needed to focus on, which was English language learners, which we call our Zoom schools, the Victory schools, which is in our poorer neighborhoods, but we also focused on the other end of the spectrum, on our GATE and gifted and talented, our STEM programs and things like that.
It's so interesting you say that, because many folks who are looking at education will be singularly focused on those kids that are challenged academically, and that's critically important.
Sure.
But a bored smart kid, forget it. I mean, they're tyrannical.
It's a different challenge,
Yeah,
but they're challenges as well.
But it can disrupt the entire classroom. So I think it's important. I'm glad to hear that you're looking at all academic levels, because if you service the needs of all students, meet them where they are, it benefits the entire classroom.
No, I think if you're looking at trying to educate the workforce, the future workforce, you've got to focus on every kid and make sure that every kid has the opportunity to reach their potential.
I want to speak about another potential revenue stream for education. Who would have thunk we'd be saying this? But another revenue stream apparently is marijuana. I mean, when we were younger, I never would have thought marijuana would be a revenue stream for education, but sure enough it is. The voters of Nevada answered question 9 clearly. They wanted to legalize marijuana. And as a result of some excise taxes and other taxes the governor has proposed, we could see a big chunk of change come in to the state budget as a result of marijuana sales. Do we see most of that money going to, well, let me start with K-12.
Well, it is directed directly towards K-12. So
through the question.
Right, and the recommendation from the governor is to add an additional 10% excise tax that would also be go directly into the distributive school account, which is what funds kind of the minimum state levels for each of our schools.
Right.
And so, the funding mechanism, outside of just the funding mechanism, certainly making sure that our DSA accounts, the school accounts, and our categoricals are fully funded is an important measure, I think, for all of us.
I want to ask about the governor's proposal on marijuana. The question has a 15% excise tax.
On the wholesale level, right.
Exactly. So the governor's now proposed at 10%. I think that's 25% tax. There's an argument for that. But I'm wondering, sir, if you are concerned that with taxes reaching 25%, that maybe we're starting to be less affordable vis-a-vis the black market. And if the black market's a lot cheaper, or even marginally cheaper, the 60 million doesn't turn into 60 million, it's 45 million or 25 million. Help me through that.
Well, that's difficult on my end because I didn't support the question. So it's,
but you see where I'm going?
It's certainly something as we take into account the budget, the effect on the budget, and where we need to be sure that we've got monies available to expend when we need to. We're unique in Nevada where we're a citizen legislature.
Right.
We meet for 120 days every other year, and we have to predict what's going to happen over the next 2 years.
Right.
I think we will certainly consider that as we look through the line items of the budget and make sure that the funding sources for all the line items are going to be reliable. We use the forecasting models from a great team of professionals that are able to oftentimes hit their numbers within 0.5%. 2 years out. So they're very good at making sure we're conservative with those numbers, but also accurate.
in focusing so distinctly on K-12 education, not a bad move, higher ed arguably lost out of it. I'm wondering if the legislature, if the governor, Dems, Reaps, both sides, are looking at higher ed and feeling as if now's the time, improving economy, more money coming in from marijuana or otherwise,
Right.
to start to kind of refund what higher ed lost during the recession.
Well, you're right on the recession side of things. They certainly lost out, but that's something that was out of our
Right.
control.
Yes, it was.
I think if you look at the 2015 session, there was hundreds of millions of dollars that went back into higher ed, both in capital improvements. We tilted up a new UNLV medical school, a new hotel college. There was buildings that are taking place, new departments that are opening up, and new hires that are happening. This year, there's additional funds that'll be focused on higher ed as well. And not only just our universities where you can get a 4-year degree, but also that gap between kind of the K-12 and the bachelor's programs, which is where that workforce development piece comes into.
I want to ask you about what's known as ESAs, the Educational Savings Accounts. To say that the debate over ESAs is polarized could only be described as an understatement. I have rarely seen an issue that excites people so much and frightens people so much. With that background in mind, what we do know is the governor's committed to it. The Republican caucus appears to be committed to it. Okay, thank you for that. The Democrats are not. They're in control now, at least on the legislative side. And the court kind of threw a softball at you because it kind of upheld the program but questioned the funding.
Sure.
Where do you go on this? Where do you go?
Okay, ESAs is a matter of law. It's in law. The only thing that the Supreme Court came back to us with was that we needed to tweak the funding.
Right.
And where that funding came from. So the governor's proposed a line item in the budget that's part of his governor's recommendation to fund that to the tune of $60 million, 25 the first year and 35 the second. And we're absolutely committed to making sure that that happens.
But it begs the question. We do have Democrats in control now of the legislature, and many of them are just vociferous in their opposition. They feel as if that the money could be spent or given to institutions, and I'm just saying what they're saying, that discriminate, that are religious, and so it presents challenges to their philosophy.
Look, the key to the program, though, is that it's giving parents the choice to do what they need to do to get their kids the best education possible.
But
regardless of the institution that they go to, again, it's the parent's choice.
I get the argument.
They have their kids' best interest in mind.
Are there compromise positions? I mean, could it be that there be a limit on income for those that can access an ESA, or allowing students in certain zones because their schools are failing to access the ESA?
Well, I think that we already have programs like that. You know, in 2015 session, we passed Opportunity Scholarships, which is a need-based program. It goes up to 300% of the federal poverty level. It's got $10.5 million that was funded through a tax rebate program on the modified business tax. It was fully funded 90 days out of session, and it gives $78,000 per kid to go and use as they see fit.
So, and you know better than I, politics art of the compromise. I mean, do we compromise? Is this something we compromise on, or is this something we fight to get this exactly as it was intended?
Well, I think we had that discussion in 2015. The law itself will probably need some tweaking just to make sure that the funding's appropriate. But I think the policy is accurate, the policy is correct. And again, it's a tool in the tool chest for education and choice across the land.
He is Paul Anderson. He is the minority leader in the Nevada State Assembly. My name is Brad Pomerance. Inside the state capitol, it is Local Edition.